Hi, Cohasset Elder Affairs yogis and participants. Welcome to Pathways to Resiliency. I'm Amy DeLillo, certified yoga therapist, and we have Stephanie Saunders, who is a licensed social worker. We are here to share with you an interactive, experiential session on how you can remain and continue to be resilient throughout this strange and unusual period of time in our lives right now. So our purpose here is to share with you some of the behind the scenes things that go on in our minds, in our brains, when we are faced with trauma and stress. And then very simple techniques that we can use to maintain resiliency, not only through our brain, but through our bodies, our spirit, through our beings. And part of you all joining us today, either in real life or if you're observing this later, are all building resiliency and neuroplasticity, which we're going to talk more about. So for those of you who may not know me, I am Amy DeLillo. I'm a certified yoga therapist and yoga and meditation teacher. I am delighted to be here. The components of this class that I'm going to be talking about are based in trauma-informed yoga. So trauma comes in many forms, and experiencing a pandemic and the stress associated with that are a form of trauma. And the whole world is joined in this. So the approaches that I'm going to share with you are based in science and research, and it's going to be movement, meditation, and breathwork techniques that can help you to have little yoga snacks, little moments in your day to get back to your center. And I'll talk more about that during my sections. And I'm going to turn over to Stephanie so she can introduce herself, and then we will share the slides in a moment. So delighted to work with Stephanie. She's new to our team, so please share more about yourself, please.
Great. I'm Stephanie Saunders. I am not a neuroscientist, but I'm a social worker, and I have been with Cohasset Elder Affairs for about 5 months. Prior to that, I've been a social worker 14 years. So prior to that, I did most of my work at the Veterans Administration. I've also worked in the private sector and other levels of government. So I also right now teach a seminar at Bridgewater State University. So this is an exciting opportunity for me to kind of hone in on my lecture skills. And also, you know, I think we're all always teachers and students. So I'm just happy to be here with all of you to meet you and connect and hopefully have an ongoing relationship. So we can get started with the slides.
Great.
Here.
So I'm organizing a screen share for us. All right, and there we go. Okay.
So
does that screen look good to you from where you are?
For me, yes.
Okay.
Can anybody kind of nod if it's working? Okay, great.
All right, great.
We are not technology people nor neuroscientists, but very interested in this subject. I think, like Amy said, the goal today is to briefly go over some of the research and science about, you know, the connection between body and brain and mental health and well-being, and really try to give you some tools to go away with that you can use in your day-to-day life. So, okay. So again, this is kind of what I'm going to be focusing on today. Do you want me to just move forward, Amy? Can I do that? I don't know if I can. All right. So are there reasons to be stressed in 2021? I don't think so, right? No, of course not. Big reasons, as we all know, the election, the holidays, the inability to see our loved ones, to celebrate like we usually would, to have traditions we usually have, racial unrest. You can see this day to day in the news throughout multiple parts of our lives. And then my favorite, the global pandemic. So, you know, I don't have to tell you what COVID is, but it's been quite a hard environment for all of us to live in right now, with a lot of unknowns and changes. And when will the vaccine be available? Which I will just plug, we do not know yet. I'll go to the next slide. But with all of this, we think it's important to remember that anxiety can be a normative response to stressful events, and that mental health is on a continuum, and we all have it. It doesn't have to be a DSM diagnosis. We all have mental health, good or bad, going on at all times.
Can you explain or define what DSM diagnosis means?
Oh, sure. So yeah, that's the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual. And that's where you get a list of disorders, mental health disorders, that actually, where you have to meet specific criteria to actually be diagnosed with that by a practitioner. So
even if we're not clinically diagnosed with this, there is an overriding anxiety and mental health concern globally. Right,
exactly. Thank you for reminding me of my acronyms not necessarily being known
universally known.
Okay, so next slide.
Great.
There we go.
Ooh, so you didn't have to sit still very long, did you, folks? All right, we wanted to keep you moving and engaged throughout this. So what can we do when we're starting to feel anxious? I think for most of us, we know we don't have to have that clinical diagnosis to know something's just off. I feel uncomfortable, jitsi, anxious, nervous, freaked out, however it is that you define it. And maybe we are at home or not, or amongst the same people who are our people who we love, but maybe we're seeing more of them than we ever had in our lives. And we just need a little shift and change. So part of trauma-informed yoga is to use your body and your breath in a specific way as a tool to elicit a response. Okay. And this, I surmise, is why each and every one of you is showing up for all the beautiful classes that we offer. Hopefully through Coasset Elder Affairs, but obviously there are plentiful choices that are available. But when we move, we just feel better. But there are really specific ways in which we can move that can elicit a swifter response and maybe a healthier response. And so part of this practice, and you guys, when we do this, you're all going to go, we've done this before. Yep, you have. Now I want you to understand why. Okay. So the reason why we move in a specific way is because we want to know that we have a body. All right. We know that, but when we're in a state of anxiety and we're freaking out, sometimes we forget we have a body because we're stuck in our head and we're stuck in stuff and whatever's going on around us. So part of this practice of yoga is rebodying. We're literally coming into our body, acknowledging we have a body, and then moving it. We're befriending our body. This is why a lot of times, well, actually all class long, you hear me use phrases like, be kind to your joints, be kind to your lower back. Okay, there's a science behind how we want to talk to ourselves about ourselves, okay, as we reconnect and reclaim our body. We want to use our body and breath to self-regulate. And part of that is the reason why at the start of every class you ever have with me, we ground and center. Because I want you to observe your start point and then your end point and all the way through. So even if there's a slight shift of, oh, I'm aware of my breath now, that's part of a regulation practice. So let's go ahead and do that right now, shall we? I'm going to stop the screen share and spotlight my video. Okay, so, and those of you sitting at home comfortably on your couch, I'm not going to name names, but you know who you are. Go ahead and sit up straight and tall. This is my camera lens, just giving you a taller view. Okay, so we're going to sit up straight and tall. in a chair, and this is part of our practice of rebodying. We want to feel our body in space in our seat. So notice the contact point of your sitting bones in your chair. Notice here how your spine is presenting itself in space. So one of the ways that we want to move our spine is lengthening. So this practice that you'll have in the handout is a therapeutic tool of moving your spine in all directions. And there's actually 7, okay? So one of them, and you can stay facing the direction you are, is lengthening. So if you found yourself seated like this as you were listening to the riveting information that Stephanie and I are sharing, you are not lengthening your spine. So we might begin just in the seated, even on the couch, and lengthen our spine. We've already moved our spine in one direction, lengthening. And this connects to our central nervous system, giving information to our brain. I'm alive and my spine is long. Next, we're going to move forward and back, cat and cow. Exhale, scoop the belly. Inhale, reverse the curve of the spine. There's a front view. If it's new for you, here's a side view. Exhale, scoop the belly. Inhale, belly forward. Good. So cat and cow. We're moving our spine forward and back. So there's 2 more ways we're moving our spine. And right now we're just following our own natural breath, creating this movement. After we do a few cat and cows, we're going to move laterally or side to side. So maybe we're lifting one arm up as we arc over, coming back to center. Exhaling as we flow to one side, inhaling neutral, alternating sides on the breath. Maybe we're lifting both of our arms. And in the safety of our own home, without a mask on, because we're safe at home, maybe we're opening our mouths as we exhale. Inhale through the nostrils, And coming back to center, let's bring our hands to heart center. Check on that lengthening of the spine. Hands at heart center, tail and crown stay aligned. As we exhale, we'll twist to one side. Inhale forward, exhale opposite. So flowing here on the breath, feeling this rotation through the torso. And again, following the natural movement of our breath, inhaling forward, exhaling as we twist, maybe adding or maybe it's more of a sigh. And let's come back to center, releasing our hands, softening our eyes. And just tune in, noticing the state and quality of your being right now. As you're ready to take in some more information, go ahead and open your eyes. And I will, and Stephanie, you're the co-host, if you don't mind, I'm going to get the screen share up. Can you repin me and take the spotlight off? There we go. Okay, those of you observing, can you see the slideshow now? By a thumbs up? Yes? Okay, thank you. All right, so therapeutic tool number 1, mission accomplished. Let's have, and you'll get this slideshow afterwards. Stephanie, for some reason, I'm not able to move to the next slide. Oh, there we go. There we go. Okay.
I'm still on your slide. Oh, here we go. Okay. So this is the fun part. Just a little more about what depression and anxiety and other mental health symptoms can look like. And there's a lot of overlap, but generally, when you're thinking depression, you're seeing, or you may be experiencing frustration, sadness, worthlessness, irritability, loss of interest in normal activities, thoughts of suicide or death on the high end of the spectrum, tiredness, disturbance in sleep and appetite, anxiety. You may experience trembling, increased breathing rate, feeling nervous or powerless, having a sense of impending danger or panic, high heart rate, sweating, and kind of the overlap is restlessness, excessive worrying, and agitation.
So before we go to the next slide, Stephanie, just ponder on your own. Have you ever felt any of these emotions, sensations in your body, in your mind, and then how it presents in your body? Sometimes when we feel these things, it can be because of all the stuff right now going on, or sometimes it might just be because we're stuck in traffic, which is a form of trauma in Boston unto itself. Okay. So please know that the tools that we're teaching you here are not just for this moment in time. These are lifelong tools that we can use to shift us from any of these states into neutral or homeostasis. That's what our body and mind want. We just want homeostasis. That's when we feel good. That's balance, when we feel balanced. These are examples of imbalances that may be temporary. Maybe we can use our breath and these other tools to shift back. But if these things don't work, that's a time to connect with Stephanie, or maybe get a referral to see someone for additional support if the practices we're sharing with you aren't enough to shift you into a different state. Okay. But a lot of these things from a yogic perspective reside within our mind and elicit a response in the body, where our mind is thinking something is real that may or may not be. Okay. Or that everything's out of our control, when in fact there are many things that are in our control. So that's part of the rebodying that we physically can do, that may seem weird at first, but it literally helps us to connect to different parts of the brain that help us to re-regulate and find our center again. Oh, ready for this one, Stephanie?
Mm-hmm. So, as Amy said, we all experience stress, anxiety, depression to some degree. And for many of us, it can even be as much as a daily occurrence or more, where it can become more troublesome for your well-being is prolonged exposure to stress and constant states of stress. And this really can, as Amy also said, have a major impact on your body and your brain. So there has been a lot of research already, if you can imagine, about current stress level during the COVID pandemic. So I just wanted to highlight a couple of these studies, mostly just to show how completely normal it is to be in an increased state of stress at this time. So one example of a study being done is the COVID-19 stress syndrome. And really this was a way of kind of mapping out the different areas, the different distress responses that are being commonly experienced during COVID-19. Danger and contamination fears, socioeconomic concerns, xenophobia, traumatic stress, and compulsive checking. I think what's important with this is that they showed in their study that about 16% of adults in the general population have severe COVID stress syndrome and are more likely to need mental health services. So the way they measured this was a series of self-assessments, but I think the takeaway is really that they were able to show a much higher rate of stress amongst the general population during this pandemic. If you weren't already aware, that might be the case. I'll go to the next slide. I think they're coming up delayed for me. Sorry about that.
Okay, it's on the CDC slide now.
Okay, I can just start presuming everybody else can see that. Okay. So the other study I wanted to highlight is a large one being done by the CDC, Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, who's on the news every day right now. And this was looking at mental health, substance use, and suicidal ideation during the COVID-19 pandemic. And what they found is that there are increased mental health challenges related to COVID-19 and associated morbidity, mortality, and mitigation activities. So they did this study, it looks like in the end of June of 2020, and found that adults reported considerably elevated adverse mental health conditions associated with COVID-19. Young adults, racial ethnic minorities, essential workers, and unpaid adult caregivers reported having experienced disproportionately more mental health outcomes, increased substance use, and elevated suicidal ideation. They also found that the prevalence of anxiety disorder was approximately 3 times those reported in the second quarter of 2019, and depressive disorder was approximately 4 times. So looking back at this same time frame the previous year, anxiety was 3 times higher in the population, and depressive disorder 4 times. So that's pretty significant. And then really this just outlined the need for the public health response to COVID-19. So one of the kind of outcomes of this study is to say that it's really important that we have increased mental health services and ways, hopefully like this, to help folks during this time, because it's causing much higher rates of anxiety and depression and other mental health disorders. That was a lot of words. Okay, so I think next slide. I think we'll go over to you now, Amy.
All right, great. So some of this information might be creating anxiety. Reading about anxiety can be a little anxiety inducing, yeah? Or you might be thinking, oh, I'm presenting like that. I'm presenting like that. Again, we are all in this together, as many of the posters and signage around our town, if not the world, is stating. But it may not feel like we're all in this together when we're sitting alone, panicking, or feeling our breath shift, or however that presents in our body. We didn't need a chart, although it's lovely to have the chart, but we didn't need a chart to go, yeah, we get sweaty and my heart rate increases when I feel uncomfortable. We have all felt this at varying times in our lives. So again, let's look at another therapeutic yoga tool. So this one is about breathing better. So what we want to do is, so go ahead and I'm going to spotlight my video here and pause the share. Okay. So for this one, again, we can stay seated wherever we are. We want to create that lengthening motion through the spine. So however you're seated, you want link through your spine to begin. In doing so, again, our body is connecting directly to the central nervous system within our brain. When we breathe, our nostrils are alternating all on their own. Every time we're breathing, we're stimulating the parasympathetic and sympathetic parts of our nervous system. That is part of what our body naturally does with no yogic finger intervention at all. So know that our body is doing that. This therapeutic practice I'm going to teach you begins with a 3-part breath practice and then left nostril breathing. The reason why this is helpful is because when we breathe just through our left nasal passage, we're creating more stimulation along the parasympathetic part of our nervous system that connects in our brain. So that's why this practice in particular is one that I chose as a therapeutic tool. So let's practice this. Come to a nice tall seat wherever you are, creating link through your spine. And as you exhale, if you are comfortable, soften or close your eyes. Allow for your mind to tune in and observe the state and quality of your being right now. Acknowledging that you're taking in a lot of information. about lifing right now. So notice how that is presenting in your body in this moment. From this start point, without any judgment of your breath at all, simply observe how and where your breath is moving specifically. And perhaps you're placing one hand just over your belly button region, maybe C-shaping the other hand and wrapping it around your lower side ribs, whatever feels good to you. We're not pushing into the body. We're creating a gentle touch sensation so that we can feel where our natural breath is moving as we begin. From your start point, we'll move into 3-part breath, a form of pranayama or breath work. So as you next inhale, press your belly away from the spine, fill your lower lung lobes, fill your upper lung lobes. Exhale in reverse, ending with a squeeze of the belly towards the spine. And maybe you're moving your hands as you're breathing, noticing how and where this breath is moving and how your tissues of respiration are moving. Your lungs, your rib cage. We're staying with this 3-part breath practice, which is a breath practice unto itself. To add this other layer of pranayama, left nostril breathing, we'll bring our right hand, place your right thumb to externally plug your right nostril. Your right pointer finger maybe is pressing at the space between your eyes. Maybe all fingers are pointed skyward, or maybe you're tucking the rest of your fingers. Whatever works for you. So we're maintaining that gentle pressure on the external right nostril. We're 3-part inhaling on the left and 3-part exhaling on the left. Our left hand maybe is coming to heart center, maybe just resting on our leg, whatever feels good to you. As you're practicing left nostril breathing, find your rhythm, 3-part rhythm of this breath. But keep your yogic posture, so shoulders are staying over the hips, maintaining that beautiful length through the whole of your spine. Staying curious about how and where your breath is moving as your ribs, your lungs expand and release. Next exhalation. Let's either release both hands onto the lap, or maybe inward turned hands are coming to heart center. And know that you might feel a little shift. Sinus release happens. So if you need a tissue, feel free to grab one. But notice how and where your breath is moving. Stay with 3-part breath after you've released your hand. Notice the state and quality of your being now. And as you're ready, transitioning back to being present here. So opening your eyes. For those of you practicing in real time, feel free to take a moment and write down any sensations that you felt, if you would like to discuss that after the recording is ended. Okay. All right. So on our next slide, I'll turn it back over to Stephanie.
So I think you're hearing a lot of this language from Amy. So I just wanted to make sure we kind of give you a clear visual of the different parts she's talking about. that are coming into play in some of these exercises, as well as in responses like anxiety and stress to various things in your environment. So this is just sort of a very very simple outline of the brain, and the kind of the different parts that can be important in the responses we're talking about. And so I wanted to highlight here actually the limbic system, which supports a variety of functions, including emotions, behavioral regulation, and memory. So this is a really important piece in that you'll see in the next couple slides in managing stress responses. And it also has possible negative or positive effects in helping you with forming memories and other parts of your life. So on to the next slide. Let's see when it comes up. Right, so Amy has also mentioned this, and I just, again, wanted to show you sort of a picture outlining what's actually happening with your body. So this is a diagram of the autonomic nervous system, which is made up of two parts, and you can see them outlined here. You have the parasympathetic nerve, which is the rest and digest, and the sympathetic nerves, which is the fight or flight, which may be a term that you're familiar with. And you can kind of see here, and again, we'll send the slides. I don't need to go through everything these do, but essentially, you can see sort of on the left what happens when the parasympathetic nerves are stimulated and what happens when the sympathetic are. So let's go to the next slide. And this sort of ties in with what happens with anxiety and stress in the brain. And again, like I said here, you can see sort of here, this is a diagram of sort of what fight or flight looks like in the brain. So you can see how a threat comes in, and then where it translates over to the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala, and how that results in behavioral and physiological responses. I just want to do a little more, sorry, 1 second. Just searching my notes to see. Oh, here we go. So, the fight or flight response, as I said, is a really important piece here that's been linked a lot to some high levels of anxiety and prolonged anxiety disorders. So this is also known as hyperarousal or acute stress response. And it's happening in response to a threat, like I said, or a harmful event, or a spider, or anything that can kind of trigger that in you. And this is translated through the brain, and then you have the responses that come out that you could kind of see on the last slide of the increased heart rate, sweating, and those various things. So this is sort of what's been shown to be the brain mechanism for how we process fear and anxiety. So I just wanted to kind of give you a map of that, and we can go to the next slide. And so similarly with depression, studies have shown some direct impacts on the brain, including a hyperactive amygdala, smaller hippocampus, and reduced racial connectivity in response to reward. So not to get too much into the specifics of this, but essentially with a lot of these depression and anxiety and different types of anxieties, there is not one kind of path through your brain that these begin and flourish. There's a lot of different parts of the brain involved, and it can be different for each person. But in talking about all this, and we'll get to this soon, I think the point being that there's a lot of different ways you can help your brain. to, to kind of fight these negative experiences. So I'll go to the next slide. So wanted to just give you the example of the polyvagal theory. I think this also comes up a lot in clinical practice and in yoga practice. But basically, it's a theory that pertains to the role of the vagus nerve that Amy mentioned in emotional regulation, social connection, and fear response. So it focuses on the structure and function of two branches of the vagus. And each branch is sort of thought to be associated with different adaptive behavioral response. So the two branches you can see here are the dorsal vagal and the ventral vagal. You can again kind of take a closer look at this as well. But this has a lot to do with what Amy's showing you in practice of how to kind of get from this fight and flight side over to a deactivation and more restful, peaceful place. Anything else on this, Amy?
I just hope that you're all noticing in the green, the lower half of this slide, the social engagement. So just a gentle reminder, vagus nerve, vagal, vagus means wanderer in Latin. So longest nerve in the body, wanders through many different parts of the spine and touches on all of our primary organ functions. And you've heard me, those of you who come to classes on a regular basis, hear me talk about that often. The reason we move in a number of different ways is because we're stimulating our vagus nerve and toning it to help us to get to this social engagement where joy lives, where the present moment lives, compassion, groundedness, all these things that are arguably part of what center and ground us as human beings. So some of you have heard me use the phrase, we're gonna hack our nervous system. That's what the cool kids are saying. So, we're hacking our nervous system, meaning we're just using our nervous system in a very specific way to get to the good place, okay? The good place of feeling centered, grounded, balanced, homeostasis. And on any given day, that can be fleeting, yeah? We might be in our yoga class, woo, I feel great, or having a conversation with someone, walk out the door and, slip on black ice or something like that and go, oh man, we're re-regulating all the time. Or a squirrel runs in front of the car. One of my favorite things to use as an example. Oh, okay, then we re-regulate. So right now we just have a lot different squirrels that are running in front of us all day long. So the idea is we're trying to get here on purpose, to help our body and all the functions of our body do their jobs better. So I know you'll have these slides to review more, but this is the cool science that I try to tuck into every class with you guys. Oh, thanks. Some of you are nodding. It means you're listening. Next slides, Stephanie.
I think you are up next.
Ooh, all right. This is one of my favorite ones. So this is one that some of you might call, oh, Amy's getting wacky again. So this is a fun one called bee's breath. So I'm going to stop the share just because you're going to experience it, and then you'll know that you have this listed information available to you. Okay, so again, we're going to elongate the spine. All right, so come to a nice tall seat. And bee's breath is a vibrational practice. So vagus nerve, longest nerve in the body, we're going to be vibrating through our neck. And in doing so, stimulating this portion of the vagus nerve. So it's called bee's breath, or humming breath is the American terminology for this particular form of pranayama or breath work. It's kind of funny, okay? There's a lot of things we can add on to it. So before you do it, oh, thanks for laughing, those of you joining right now. I'm going to show you all the different incarnations because some of them are closing your eyes and ears. And I want to make sure you can see and hear me first, okay? So in essence, the basic of it is 3-part breath. But instead of exhaling through the nostrils, you're going to be humming. Okay, and it's going to go like that. Now, in a whole class, when we're all together and nobody's on mute, it does sound like a little beehive. Okay, so I want you to envision, because we're all alone together. So just envision we're all in our own little hive, if you will. So that's part of what collectively we make those sounds together. We're going to have to imagine that in this time, but alone we'll hear our own vibration. So all unto ourselves, we can just do inhale through the nose, exhale, hum. You're going to be stimulating your parasympathetic rest and digest. If you want more, let's say you're in a really anxious state, you are in a safe place where you can close your eyes and mute your hearing a little bit, okay? You might practice your bee's breath, plugging your ears, okay? And or covering your eyes. All right. Other variations, if you really want to get clever, your thumbs might externally press your ears, and then you might just place your fingers here. Okay. So those are some variations. Those of you practicing at home, I'm going to talk you through this, but go ahead, come to a nice long spine, maybe placing your hands, covering eyes, plugging ears, whatever you would like. Come into your 3-part breath, feeling that rise and fall of your breath through the belly, through the lungs and ribs. And as you're ready, begin the humming exhalation. And on your next exhalation, gently releasing your hands, maybe hands come to your heart. And take that pause, that moment to self-regulate or to check in. That's a form of self-regulation. What am I feeling? Amusement might be what you're feeling. That was weird. Feel whatever you're feeling, knowing you've done something good for your whole being. Softly open your eyes as you're ready to rejoin. And know that that's a practice that those of you who know me know very well that I'd sit in my car and do that. I wouldn't care if someone could see me, but I'll leave it up to you. If you want to practice that only in the privacy of your home or in yoga class. But just notice that felt sense. There we go. Stephanie, I have the slides back up and we have a little more to share with you. Best laid plans here. All right, so that's bee's breath or humming breath. All right. Neuroplasticity.
So in the interest of time, I'm going to go through this quickly so we can save a little time for questions and seeing everybody's face again. But essentially, after hearing all of this, you know, and possibly feeling that there's so many bad things happening to our brains right now, the good news is that there is something called neuroplasticity. Which is the capability of nerve cells to biologically adapt to circumstances. And the importance of neuroplasticity means that it's possible to change dysfunctional patterns of thinking and behaving and develop new mindsets, new memories, new skills, and new abilities. Next slide. Oop, next slide, Amy.
It's
Oh,
it's there.
Okay. Like, I don't know if I'm loud enough.
It's on my screen, so you can go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
So again, a very nice picture of an adult neuron that's capable of reorganizing its neural network by forming new connections. And to give you one example on the next slide of how this can work is a protein called brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF. And this has been shown in research that it's, well, so it's a member of the neutroponin family of growth factors. Again, neuroplasticity, ability to regrow and connect the neurons in your brain. And it helps pave networks of neuronal correction, promoting mental and behavioral flexibility. Stress, anxiety, is known to weaken expression of the BDNF. So changes in BDNF expression are also associated with both normal and pathological aging and psychiatric disease, in particular structures important for memory processes. So some interventions like exercise, antidepressant administration, which we're not talking about here, can enhance the expression of BDNF in the normal and pathological conditions. So there's a lot of research about the effect of this and other growth factors on someone getting different neurological diseases, dementia, Alzheimer's type. There's a lot of research, Huntington's disease. So that to be said, there is research out there showing that the expression of this can help prevent somebody getting one of these big illnesses in their lives. And how do you get more of the BDNF or other things? There's interventions like exercise and other nice things that we're doing today that can really help with that. So that's just one example. There's a lot more out there. I think we're back to you, Amy.
Great. Shameless photo. That's my husband. This past weekend, we went snowshoeing, safely, socially distanced, out in the wilderness, because we love the snow. And we wanted a changed experience. And the very nerdy part of me said, we're building neuroplasticity too. So if you are not so inclined to go out and walk in the snow, maybe looking at pictures of it can actually have a similar response in our brain. Not nearly as fun, but it can have a similar response. So trying new things, whether that's classes that we're offering through the Senior Center or elsewhere, hopefully you're getting out and doing some walks, maybe a change of scenery in a safe location for you. All those very simple things can help us to build neuroplasticity and keep our brains healthy longer. So this slide is really all about moving, getting grounded. So this time of year, we quite literally are probably not going to walk barefooted outside, although people have been known to do it. In spring, summer, fall, I highly recommend it in a safe place if that's appropriate for you and your feet. It's called earthing, or we can just call it walking barefooted. But there's actually some cool science that backs the ability to be out in nature and having that skin to nature contact. So in the meantime, because we're here in the north in winter, if you're watching this, at a rewatch, it's winter now and we're recording this, but getting out or in and walking, adding a mantra. So mantra is just a fancy way of the stories we tell ourselves. And we're all telling ourselves stories. It might be, can we move again? It might be, is this done? It might be, I want to read more about those slides. I'm nervous, I'm anxious. Those are mantras. Okay, stories we tell ourselves. Let's choose a better one as we move a little bit. So the last little tool, and not last forever, but last in the context of this presentation, is a moving meditation. So for each of us, if you're comfortable coming to standing, and I understand that may not be appropriate for all of us, so this might be something we do at a different time, but a moving, walking meditation, quite literally, is grounding us to the earth Sorry for my gymnasium of, of objects in my space, but we're just walking. And maybe in the comfort of our home, we're going to be walking barefooted, and this allows our feet to make contact with the space beneath us. Maybe while we're walking, we're creating a healthy repetitive phrase, I am safe. I am grounded. This can turn into what's called a loving kindness meditation. May I be safe. May I be healthy. Maybe you're repeating these in your mind after I say them. May I be happy. May I live my life with ease. It might be as simple as taking a stroll around your house. And that might be just enough to help ground you into this moment if you're starting to feel like you're losing your grip on this moment. Maybe we turn the TV off when we do that. A walking, grounding meditation with what I would call lovely self-talk is something that I strongly recommend for each of you to do in whatever space is appropriate for you, whether it's out in the wilderness or in the comfort of your own home. We are so excited with so much information to share with you. I hope that each of you will take the time with these handouts that we will be forwarding to you to look at the resources that Stephanie and I have shared. We have class listing in connection to that. Stephanie's hours, Thursdays, Tuesday and Thursday, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. In her contact information in addition to mine. We are so grateful that all of you are here. I'm going to, Stephanie, any last words you'd like to have on the recorded version here?
Please take advantage of what we have to offer at Wilcott Commons. And if there's other things that we can be doing like this or anything else that you're finding helpful to your well-being, that's what's most important to us. So we welcome any feedback.
Absolutely. And thank you all so much for participating. This concludes the recorded portion of our